I have to tell you, this is the most disturbing show that I think I've ever done. This is some of the most disturbing information that I have seen and some of the most disturbing pictures I have ever seen. And I in the last 5 years have studied the Holocaust in Auschwitz, so I'm not shocked by an awful lot anymore, unfortunately. But I am shocked by what I'm going to show you tonight. The old saying in TV news is, if it bleeds, it leads, right? But in a trial of abortion Dr. Kermit Gosnell, the media has shown sudden, incredible restraint at best. Despite this, a 261-page report from a grand jury that is so shocking, horrifying, tragic, gut-wrenching, tells you an awful lot about who we're dealing with, not just with the doctor, but also society. It is filled with details that make Hannibal Lecter look like Mother Teresa, and the media is just not interested. I mean, they couldn't get enough of Sandra Fluck's plea for government-funded condoms. They went full throttle after the Susan G. Komen Foundation said they're not going to give money for the abortion clinics at Planned Parenthood. Tonight's episode is going to make you just so proud to support Susan G. Komen. Somehow, the news media just couldn't see their way to news any worthiness of a story about this man, Kermit Gosnell, and his murder clinic. It was described with a TV-friendly headline, House of Horrors. That's what they call it in the grand jury report. For over 20 years, Dr. Gosnell ran a multi-million dollar abortion mill. He got rich off routinely snipping the necks of the babies. Don't put this up yet, please. I am going to show you, beginning here, some horrifying pictures. This is your last warning to get the kids out of the room, stop, watch it later, or turn this off. But I think it is important, especially if you're on the fence about whether it's a baby or not. Go ahead and show this. Snipping the necks of babies. This is the back of the neck of one of the babies, and I'll tell you which baby this was here in just a minute, but this is the back of a baby's head. This was Gosnell's term for jamming scissors, snipping scissors into the back of the neck and cutting their spinal cord. He also severed the baby's feet, and he kept the feet in jars in the office. Witnesses testified that the babies were moving, they were breathing, they were screeching. Another witness testified they personally saw the doctor snip the necks of more than 30 babies. Yet another said she had to kill the baby that was delivered in a toilet by cutting its neck with scissors. He literally was able to convince people, and it doesn't seem apparently that it was that hard, to convince people in Philadelphia that worked for him that it was okay to kill a living, breathing, moving baby because, quote, it's just the baby's reflexes, that's all. It's not really moving. Don't worry about it. As if killing the baby moments before in the womb was somehow or another better. So I guess you've already made your line. We are talking about the cold-blooded murder of innocent babies. Many were 20, or 25, or even 30 weeks along in the pregnancy. I have to tell you, I see some of these pictures and I see my children. Now, that's well past the 24-week limit. One 30-week-old baby he aborted was nothing more than a punchline to him. He joked that the baby was so big, he could have walked her to the bus stop. That baby. That baby was breathing and moving when born. And he said, that boy, your baby is so big, he could walk me to the bus stop. And he snipped the neck. He took this baby and then just matter-of-factly threw him in a shoebox with the arms and legs lifelessly hanging over the edges. This is baby boy B. They found his body frozen in 1-gallon spring water bottle. He was at least 28 weeks when he was killed. Baby C was moving and breathing for 20 minutes before an assistant came in and cut the spinal cord. She did it just the way she had seen the good doctor do it so many times. And then the report goes on to the Sunday babies. The Sunday babies. The really big ones. The really big ones that even he was afraid to perform in front of others. By the way, did I tell you that this is a black doctor? And he wasn't doing this to white women because he said that white women would most likely complain and so he'd get in trouble. So he was just keeping it to African American and minority women. This is Margaret Sanger's dream come true, progressives. He said the really big ones, he was afraid to perform in front of others. These abortions were scheduled for Sundays. Oh, he stayed for the Lord's Day, a day when the clinic was closed and none of the regular employees were present. The only person allowed to assist with these special cases was his wife. The files for these patients were not kept at the office. Gosnell took them home with him and disposed of them. We may never know the details of these cases. We do know, however, that during the rest of the week, Gosnell routinely aborted and killed babies in the 6th and 7th month of pregnancy. The Sunday babies were bigger still. They described the facility. As quite interesting. Scattered throughout, it says, in cabinets. The basement, in a freezer, in jars and bags and plastic jugs were fetal remains. It was a baby charnel house. He slaughtered hundreds, possibly thousands of children. This is the biggest, bloodiest mass murderer in the history of our country. This guy's far, far worse than anything that Jeffrey Dahmer did. Far worse. Any of the mass murders, serial killers, the media doesn't cover it. Well, they didn't cover it until they were shamed into it. The media would be more interested, I guess, if he would have used an AR-15 to ensure fetal demise, as he called it. About the only media attention was this story, reporting on how little attention the story was actually receiving. A columnist from Bucks County, PA, J.D. Mullane, one of the few actually covering the event, he snapped, "This is the most damning photo for the press at a recent courtroom hearing. Those seats are reserved for the various members of the press. 3 rows of seats to accommodate 40 reporters. Mullane was the only reporter to attend, along with one from the New York Times who showed up later in the day and stayed for maybe 5 minutes." The trial began nearly a month ago on March 18th. But NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, no, they didn't cover that at all. They covered it last week. The question is why? Well, I want you to know I don't think it's some conspiracy theory to avoid the story or anything like that. I think it's a lack of intuitive interest from the press that betrays their beliefs. You see, abortion is not wrong to the people in the press. It's not wrong. So it's not really a big deal. The White House press conference today, Jay Carney was asked about Gosnell, and here's what he said. I want you to listen to this carefully.
I'll say 2 things. 1, the president is aware of this. 2, the president does not and cannot take a position on an ongoing trial.
Oh my gosh.
So I won't as well.
Oh my gosh. How about Trayvon? Let me ask you this. Boy, would I like to use some names. This president during the health care debate accused doctors of cutting the feet off of patients for an extra 30 grand. Do you remember that? And I said, where's the evidence? Give me one case. Where's the evidence? Nothing. And the press went on and reported those lies over and over again. And yet he has nothing to say about this doctor who literally has feet in jars. And the president can't speak out about it. Oh, he does care about health care so much, doesn't he? He cares about the American people and making sure that we don't have another Mengele. You see, the left isn't outraged that 25-week-old babies are terminated, or 25-week babies are terminated, because it's completely legal the week before. So if you're totally cool with an unborn baby being terminated, as you would call it, at 24 weeks, why are you appalled when they're terminated 7 days later? Perhaps the scariest part of this entire story, the thing that concerns me the most, is what Gosnell convinced others to do. He convinced people, apparently it wasn't too hard either, to look at a living, crying, moving baby and slit its neck and murder it. Over the years, there were hundreds of snippings. Sometimes, if Gosnell was unavailable, the snipping was done by one of his fake doctors, or even by one of the administrative staff. Really? You go from licking stamps to killing babies. Everyone there acted as if it wasn't murder at all. Well, of course they didn't think it was murder. Of course they didn't think it was murder. They're a week late. What have they been indoctrinated with for so long? That's not a life in the womb. That's a woman's choice. She can do whatever she wants with it. We've just heard over and over and over again how it's just nothing but tissue in there. It's just a collection of cells. MSNBC calls that a thing. Well, if you can convince someone to murder an infant in cold blood, of course this is a thing. Look at the picture. That ain't a thing, man. If you can convince somebody that you can go in and kill that child, a woman can kill that child, and then just, I guess, brush it off and call for the next patient. If you can do that, what can't you convince them to do? Let me tell you something. This is a result of a culture that does not value life at all. For over 2 decades, hear me, 20 years, Kermit Gosnell convinced people to slit the necks of perfectly healthy babies several per day, week after week after week, year after year, baby after baby after baby. Let's just take this as the testimony says an average of 15 a day. Let's just look for the first decade, 15 a day. That means this man killed more children in a single month than all of the school shootings in the history of America combined. And no one in the media says anything. But that's only because they care so much about children. We have to do something for the collective, you know. I lived in Philadelphia. I live in Texas for a reason, but believe me, we're headed for troubled times. When a society does not react to these kinds of things, there's trouble. When I tell you there'll be stories coming out like this over the elderly or the handicapped, go ahead, mock me. The mentally ill, anybody whose quality of life a progressive deems inadequate, or if there's an emergency, of course, we're already talking about. Krugman admitted the death panels, and nobody in the media said a word, and they're already doing this in the UK. Now, of course, they're putting their elderly, 130,000 a year are put on the pathway to death, the death pathway. Well, it's being done for a very good reason, of course, out of compassion. Well, hello, Dr. Mangala. Today is the anniversary of the birth and death of Corrie ten Boom. Please read about Corrie ten Boom. Please reevaluate, because we need to stand. The media is naturally recoiling from this story because it shines a bright light on exactly what it means to be pro-choice. Sure, most abortion doctors aren't as flippant about it. They kill the baby in the womb, so you don't see the baby moving around and crying. It doesn't cause any trauma. But whether this is in the House of Horrors or in the best hospital in America, the end result is the same. A real child dies. A life ends. That's it, period. You can call it whatever you want, but that's the truth. And the truth shall set you free. Now that people are catching on, the media is scrambling to cover its tracks. How about the hospitals? Are they covering their tracks? Because hospitals were involved in this. This one I love. This one is from NBC News. The story is now on our radar. Really? How about this from CBS? CBS has been working the story. Well, I bet you have. CBS Evening News, Sunday, first time they reported on it. Washington Post got pissy. They admitted that he wasn't aware of the story. Watch this one. Wasn't aware of the story until the readers began emailing about it. I wish I could be conscious of all stories everywhere, but I can't be, nor can any of us, says Martin Barron, Washington Post executive director. Oh, well, thank you. You sound humble. Even Headline News, a network that I believe is 80% Nancy Grace and the other court-related shows, they're not even bothering to cover this case. Well, this is a fascinating case. In the interest of being fair and straight up with you, we didn't cover it either, at least not right away. I don't have affiliate stations in every market in the country. I don't have a massive staff. It's our job to get it right. It's our job. So I won't use that staff or anything else as an excuse. That is why when the trial started on September 18th, TheBlaze didn't have any coverage of it until March 19th. The day after the trial began. Where were the reporters that I know for a fact read The Blaze every single day? Where were they? At the risk of sounding crass, help us grow. We will not miss the story of the biggest serial killer in American history. And for another thing, people don't progress. They might as individuals over their lifetime, but we all start at the beginning with good or evil, and it is up to each of us as individuals to decide, not the collective. The collective doesn't decide. We don't progress as a collective. We do as individuals. Tell me this isn't the American Mangala. And no other network would dare say that. No other network, every other network would chastise me for saying it on the air. Amen, brother. This guy's a monster. And nobody will say it. Because whether it's left or right, you are not getting the truth. You're getting a political agenda. And that agenda, too many times, is the collective right over the individual right. And you'll notice when the media will tell this story, they will not show you the pictures I showed. And maybe they're making the right decision, but I don't think so. Because those pictures will make you say, who the hell in the collective is standing up for the individual child?